Welcome to Ancient Military Tactics, a channel dedicated to providing visual representation of how ancient militaries operated and waged war, going into detail about the real tactics they used to win battles, and showing you, the viewer, how this would have looked in ancient times. In this video, we will be describing the tactics used by Alexander the Great up against King Darius III in the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC, where Alexander's smaller army was able to come out victorious by means of superior military and tactics. We are a brand new channel, and we really enjoy making these educational videos. To show your support, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you can continue to learn about these historical military tactics. Alexander was born a Macedonian. As the legend goes, his father was none other than the mighty Zeus, though, more realistically, his actual father was King Philip II of Macedon. At the mere age of 13, Alexander was tutored by none other than Aristotle himself, one of the most well-known philosophers of human history. It is said that Aristotle fueled Alexander's thirst for knowledge and power, telling him stories of the mysterious East and what dangers and conquests lie there. By the age of 16, Alexander had already been entrusted with Macedonia, while his father left for battle. And by the age of 20, his father, King Philip, was assassinated, and Alexander claimed for himself the Macedonian throne, which set him on the path to becoming one of the most notable kings in human history, Alexander the Great. Alexander had inherited the great Macedonian army, which his father had completely reformed. The late King Philip had created the concept of making the military an actual career, and having transformed his peasant class into full-time professional soldiers, he was able to instill discipline and cohesion through regular and consistent drill. On top of this cohesion, Philip fine-tuned the phalanx, giving his soldiers much longer spears, the two-handed weapons called pikes, and making the phalanx deeper so as to give more support to the front lines. All of these units, working in cohesion, produced the finest military the world had ever seen. Each soldier in the phalanx carried a sarissa, the incredibly long spear, also known as the pike, and they had a sword as a secondary weapon. Their armor was that of a shield, often called the Telamon shield, which was a smaller version of the typical hoplite shield of its day. They also wore bronze helmets and greaves. The Persian army, led by King Darius III, was armored to suit their own unique fighting style. The Persian immortals were accustomed to open-field combat where each man fought for himself, and they were armored with a short spear and a bow. Their armament consisted of a cloth cap, scale armor, and a shield woven from wicker, which would prove completely useless against the weapons of the Macedonians. And to make matters worse, these Persian immortals were the best soldiers Persia had to offer. On many ancient accounts, the majority of Persians went into battle in simple loincloths, equipped with wooden clubs, breakable short swords, or mere sharpened sticks hardened by fire. Because of this disadvantage, the primary Persian tactic was to rely on the sheer force of numbers and using missile weapons, or bows and javelins, from afar. They were completely vulnerable in hand-to-hand combat. Imagine the Persians' morale when they saw a formidable sea of bronze armor and pikes staring them down. Having inherited a superior and elite army from his father, it's easy to see how Alexander actually had the upper hand, despite being greatly outnumbered in the upcoming battle. The Battle of Gaugamela, which took place on the 1st of October in 331 BC, was the final meeting between Alexander the Great of Macedon and King Darius III of Persia. By this time, Alexander had already defeated Darius in Turkey and captured his royal family as hostage. And Alexander had conquered Tyre and Egypt, slowly eating away at the once great Persian Empire. After each battle or conquest, King Darius had either fled battle or pled for peace, which Alexander rejected each time. Even before this Battle of Gaugamela, Darius had attempted to negotiate peace by offering his daughter as a bride, to which Alexander also refused. The ruthless and unstoppable Alexander was determined to follow through with his conquest over Persia. Now, we will show you, using Total War's engine, how this would have looked in ancient times. Darius's forces are estimated to be between 100,000 to 1 million men, while Alexander's forces are said to have numbered only 40,000 men. Darius chose the site of Gaugamela because it was an open landscape, so he thought his overwhelming numbers, which included 200 scythed chariots, 15 elephants, men from all over his empire, and even Indian mercenaries, would be able to outmatch Alexander's own. As you can see, Darius believed this terrain to give him the tactical advantage, where he could easily deploy more troops towards Alexander's army and set traps and obstacles to impede them from advancing. On the day of the battle, the Macedonians' heavy phalanx took up the center of the field. Alexander with his companion cavalry took up the right flank, and his other force of cavalry were on the left. On both sides of the phalanx were light infantry and archers. He then put smaller contingencies of infantry at slight angles on both flanks, in order to protect against any Persian flanking maneuvers which would be inevitable due to his numbers disadvantage. Lastly, he had additional infantry in the rear, so he could provide reinforcements where needed. The battle began, and Alexander and his cavalry rode to the right, feinting Darius into sending his own cavalry after him. However, in doing so, Darius left an opening in his lines. Alexander immediately took advantage of this opening and rushed to the left, charging towards the gap the Persians had made. He was heading right for Darius himself. Alexander's feinting maneuver in turn created an opening in the Macedonian line, so Darius sent in his scythed chariots straight for the Macedonian phalanx. And when the Macedonians saw this coming, they simply opened up their ranks and allowed the chariots to pass right by. Once the chariots were disoriented, the Macedonian infantry descended on them and engaged them in hand-to-hand combat, which, as we know, the Persians were not well suited for. All this time, the infantry that Alexander had placed on the flanks successfully held the Persians at bay. As Alexander's own mix of cavalry and infantry approached Darius, Alexander threw a spear, supposedly missing Darius by mere inches. Upon this close encounter, Darius yet again fled the battlefield. Seeing their commander flee, the Persian army soon followed suit, completely defeated and routed. After yet another victory over the Persians, this time Alexander pursued the fleeing Darius all over Persia, and the latter was soon assassinated by his cousin Bessus, who desired the Persian throne for himself. Saddened and perhaps angered by this dishonorable death, Alexander first captured Bessus, torturing him before killing him. Then Alexander gave Darius a magnificent funeral and buried him in the emperor's tomb with his forefathers. Lastly, Alexander took great care of Darius's family and continued to treat them with respect. And eventually, he married Darius's daughter, fulfilling his final wish before battle. The acquisition of Persia made Alexander the ruler of the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen. Undefeated in battle, he is forever immortalized as one of history's most successful military commanders, and his influence remains prominent even in the modern world today. Thank you for watching Ancient Military Tactics, your go-to resource for the strategies and tactics used by ancient militaries throughout history to conquer their foes. If you liked this video and would like to see more, please subscribe and leave in the comments which ancient military tactic you'd like to see next. Until next time, thank you and have a wonderful day.